My name is Zach Carmichael, and I'm going to be running for MBAA president. And so what I really want to focus on is ensuring that we can maximize the value and the impact here of our experience over the next 2 years. We're making a huge investment of both time and money into the program, and so I want to ensure that the role of the MBAA is continuing with on the other endeavors of the program to maximize the amount of value that we can get. And so with that, I want to ensure that we can interface with all of our classmates, whether that be interface between the first year MBAs and the second year MBAs, and then also incorporating events where we can provide for the PMBAs and also the IMBAs. Because there's a huge network out there that's currently building, and especially with the growth of the IMBA, it's going to be essential for us to be able to communicate with them and ensure that we can match our objectives with theirs. Along with that, I want to make sure that the MBAA is responsible for maintaining transparency and communicating expectations of the current class with the academic administration and also the faculty. So that way there's clear communication, and we can make sure that the objectives of individual students are being met as well as the objectives of the class as a whole. And also along with that, I want to make sure that we're maintaining a long-term strategy. So we're going to be here ultimately for 2 years, which is a pretty small amount in the relative scheme of things. So I want to make sure that when we get out, that what we've really invested in is the network and the relationships that we've built with all the individuals around us, because in 10 years, that's really what's going to matter. So through that, I'm going to try and facilitate working with the programs, working with the respective vice presidents, and collaborating, and also creating an environment in which people can come forward and pitch new ideas and about programs and other ways that we can interface, as well as some ideas that I have of my own. So, thank you.
Hey, I'm Carolyn, and I'm running for the MBAA president. Now, my vision for the MBAA president is all-encompassing, yet relates specifically to my program. Let me explain. First, we must further strengthen the connection that we have with our graduate degree programs. So with that, I mean IMBA, executive MBA, professional MBA, and full-time MBA, as you know. Second, I believe that we need to have more stability when it comes to the cost of the MBAs going to things like the Global Immersion Program, for example. So let me dive in a little bit more into this connection that I'm talking about amongst the graduate degree programs. Now, when I talk about connection, the first word that pops into my mind is diversity. This term that connects us, this term that allows us to draw upon our different unique experiences and stories. We value diversity so much that we now have a board position for VP of Diversity and Inclusion. Now, when it comes to things that I think that we can improve on in terms of this connection that I want to embrace with the other graduate degree programs, time is obviously one that really stumps us a lot. So in order to get rid of this idea of being stressed out right now, we're getting ready to take midterms, we may be like James, he's climbing walls and stuff for charities. But in order to get rid of this idea of time, I will pack more events into the beginning of the school year. That accounts for more participation. Obviously, people are not as busy, people are not as involved, and I think that packing more events like I Converge into the beginning of the school year would have more participation. Moving on to my second point of stabilizing costs for MBA 1s wanting to participate in the Global Immersion Program. Now, MBA 2s could tell you that their experience was really good for, can I keep going? I just got 30 seconds. Please.
And I'm running for president of the MBAA. If elected, I promise 3 things. 1, I will see you. 2, I will hear you. And 3, I will be you. I see you PMBAs working hard every single day at your job, and then at the end of the day you're exhausted, and then you go home, but then you have to come back out to school. It's hard. You deserve to be commended for this. I understand this firsthand experience as a single mom with 3 children, doing a part-time job, pursuing an MBA, and also a JD. So we all know that we have this busy schedule going on, but you're doing a hard work that we can't see all the time. So my point in the presidential campaign would be to bring you in and to build these connections and relationships with you, and also to make sure that just because you're not necessarily in sight, you're out of sight, but you're not out of mind. And I hear you, MBA 2s. I realize that you want us to focus on building this current board's, working on the current board's good things and pulling them forward. But at the same time, you want us to focus on fostering a culture of diversity and inclusion. You also seem to be concerned about the direction of the program. So you want us to really focus on that, and that's what we're going to do. We're going to work smarter and not harder. MBA 1s, I am you. We worked hard together this semester, and we accomplished a lot, especially in relation to the Brazil trip. We started off with a challenge, and then we ended with something that was a great compromise. Personally, I sent out 19 emails. I went to 4 different meetings across campus with different stakeholders and different decision makers. I also spoke individually to 26 students. I spoke with 3 professors, 5 deans, and 1 director. So if you want someone that gets something done, you already know that I have that track record. So please vote for me, Julie Losh, President.
Running for the post of president. First of all, I'd like to commend Chris and Adi for the work they're doing for alumni relations and collaborating with the PMBAs and IMBAs. I'll continue doing that, but my real focus would be on 3 or 4 things. The first is, I would like to work with TAT specifically in order to get the MBA contributing towards 100% involvement in case competitions. That's going to be one. The second is more transparency in the MBAs starting full time. So the specific action for that would be office hours for the MBA boards. Anyone can come in, what your grievances are, and sometimes some feedback, positive feedback is the good things that the MBA is doing. Third is learning via collaboration. I was in the finance industry 6 years, people just know that, but I was doing one work in the software industry, nobody knows that. Someone who's doing something else in finance or in some other industry, nobody knows that as well. We have 15 minutes presentation held by MBA once a week. People can learn by sharing, presenting, and by listening. That's something I would strive on working at. Lastly, I think a lot has been worked on about collaborating and about transparency and about how you mix with other people and everything. I think my role would be to interact with all of these and the club leaders. And so accountability is one thing that I'll be bringing in from my work experience, making clubs accountable for what they've been doing, what they need to do, getting clubs to do what they have to do. And it's not just accountability at their end, but accountability at my end, that I am there for them, supporting them, and that's my accountability, that's my responsibility, whether I was there for the GMA club, GFA club, or any club, or the data analytics club. At the very last, I'd say I held this position at undergrad. I know how to bridge a gap between the administration and the student body. I will not approach in an attacking manner, but I'd approach with integrity and dignity. And I would see the MBA to be less of a social organization, but actually a student organization that works towards these students. That's all. Thank you.
All 4 can talk about IMBAs and PMBAs, and I appreciate that because that's something that I've tried to push forward. But I'll tell you 2 challenges. One, the PMBAs haven't been involved as we've tried to get them to be. And 2, not everybody in the program thinks the IMBA involvement is something we should be pushing forward. So what are your thoughts on either one of those? Let's start with Zach.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and take that. So with the PMBAs specifically, I think that a great idea would be to have a PMBA liaison and also a liaison with the IMBA program. Because a lot of times we just need more input and we don't know what we don't know, and they know their program best. And so I figure while we have some great ideas on how to get them included, it would be beneficial to get their input in as well. And then as far as the IMBA is concerned, I would argue that they're an essential piece of this program. They're taking off at a breakneck speed. They've got 900 people in it right now. And that's an asset that we can leverage to be mutually beneficial in the sense that we have something to offer as a full-time program to them, and they have something to offer with us. We all come from different backgrounds and different networks, and as I see it with the IMBA program, we've just expanded the scope of what we're able to do as a program.
For me, I would say that PMBA already has a council, so I think that incorporating them into our board meetings or having a specific person person, contact person, if they would like to do that, that would be great. Or even just recording those meetings so that we can reach both PMBAs and IMBAs on their own schedule. IMBAs, it's a different situation because I'm pretty sure not every single IMBA is in Illinois. So they're not necessarily going to want to come to this event, but maybe finding out exactly where they are and what events we actually provide going forward will be dictated by that type of a thing and having involvement as far as surveys and things like that. So I think that it's important to have everyone's involvement, not just the PMBA and IMBA, but everyone's involvement as far as making that happen. Making the survey as far as like finding out exactly where the best locations are to have things, and then also if it's gonna be here, just keeping the communication really open and recording things so that we can actually communicate better.
I just want to make sure that I'm understanding your question. Your question is the involvement of the IMBAs, right? So first off, I think that has a lot to do with like the impact and the way that they're looking at the different events. Like all the emails that we get throughout the day, like encompasses the word like networking. And I think that the change in the way that we see the word networking as not being just, you know, talking to someone for a job-related purpose. I think we change that. We get insight into what we're actually doing by bringing everybody together, which is sharpening each other's ideas and sharing knowledge and drawing from our different experiences. I talked a little bit earlier in my speech about iConverge, and literally I talked to an IMBA for about 15 minutes. You want to know how we got the conversation started? It was about me complimenting his fluorescent red and blue shirt. So, I mean, it's changing what we think about when we think about the term networking. It's changing the impact that we can have on one another, and I think that by first diving into that is going to change what we see as relevant amongst the different groups.
So I think the first thing is when you see collaboration starting to grow between MBA 1s and 2s, that's when they will realize the importance of collaborating with PMBAs and IMBAs. Secondly, when you start sharing, so you can send out emails and you can create events, but if you don't share success stories, people are not motivated enough. So MBA office hours would be one place that would be really helpful, like people can come up and share their stories. The board will ask specifically, have you interacted? They will push for it. When they get even one story, if that may be at the end of fall, maybe during spring, but that's a start. You share that story with the MBAs, if not with the PMBAs, you see some motivation in the MBAs going out and reaching out to the PMBAs. And the second step would be, and I would see if that's possible, but that's on top of my head is right now, opening the case competitions to PMBAs as well, or maybe helping somehow MBAs going out and helping them in case competitions or coaching them in some manner so that they can see the value that we add in their program and then we can learn from them in return.
So I'd like each of you to say in relation to this position as president, what you think your greatest weakness is and how you would like to improve that through this role.
So I'll go ahead and take that. I think one of my greatest weaknesses is impatience. I'm really quick to try and find results. And through this program, you really have to, through the program specifically, you have to find a way to be able to slow yourself down and sometimes take time for the important things. But also through this role, interacting with other people, that takes time. All of it takes time, and so it's all got to be metered and it's all got to be appropriate for the time. So I think I can see this definitely as a way that would grow me beyond that weakness.
I actually will answer your question by positioning it a different way. One of my greatest strengths is being able to identify all of my weaknesses, and so I actively work on them constantly. I don't really have any right now, no, I'm kidding. Basically, time management will be an issue because I have 3 kids, as I already mentioned, and I'm working a job. However, whenever something's important to me, like this would be, I take it very seriously and I make the time for it. Like I already said, I went through all of the things I did for the Brazil trip, and at the last minute, whenever nobody was available, because every single person was suddenly so busy, nobody could make it to a meeting. I even reached out to the law school and pulled in a law student to come with me to the meeting, and then Vivek at the last second also came in, thankfully, but at the same time, nobody else was available, but I was, and I have 3 kids and a job. So I think that this is a position that is definitely something I can do, and will continue to build on the time management and the ability to diversify time.
I got you. So, man, Zach beat me to a punch, and I would have to say that my greatest weakness as well is feeling as though I'm wasting time or like being impatient. I think that The thing is that we only have a set amount of time, so I want to do as much as I can, as quickly as I can, get things done efficiently and effectively. But I learned earlier this year that sometimes the best ideas take time, and sometimes those are worth thinking through. So I think that working with a team, working with a group of people in which we all have the goal to better the board and to better the community that we want to thrive in, I think that's going to help me to realize that getting things done quickly is not what it's all about. Getting things done the right way is more effective.
My greatest weakness actually covered by the communications. I can come up with a lot of ideas, but may not be the best person to write them down and send it to 100 people. I can write them, I can speak about them. I'm not the best person to write them in a structure, so maybe that's where VP communication comes in. If that post wasn't there, then I would not be the best.
So I think Julie mentioned the time. So you look at Chris, he basically show up during every event. I think the biggest commitment from the president is time. So I was wondering, do you have other engagement, other clubs, probably you will be involved too, that may sometimes become a conflict when you manage your time?
I'll just go again to that. So I'm also a part of Hunter Corps, and so I've been working with that organization as a project manager this semester, and I'm planning on continuing with that.
I'll just say that we will have a more flexible schedule when we start the board position, so we'll be able to manage around that. But for me specifically, I recognize I'm not a one-man show. So as much as I love Chris, I don't necessarily think it's important to go to every single event. I think working smarter, not harder, is a better approach. So maybe positioning and bringing up other leaders to stand in my place at an event I might not be able to attend. And also just being available at all times whenever people need to contact me via phone, email, whatever. And possibly holding some office hours as well as doing that. So.
I think that Julie brought up a very important part, and is that we're a team. If I can't make it, obviously, I can't be the one-man show, but if I can't make it, it's having that team, that board to rely on. I think that time, kind of like I said before, is not going to stop. So I'm also involved with Women in Business, and what I have found effective is organizing my day the night before. Now, given sometimes your day is just not going to go the way that you plan it, but that's life. And I feel like as long as you keep trying, as long as you have the dedication and the want to better the program, to be the face of the program, to help out and listen, I feel like it's going to work out all in the end. Whether you're able to attend one event or maybe you got to miss out on it, that's a give and a take. But I think that as long as you keep that in mind, I think that's when you're going to become more successful. When you realize that, hey, you may not be able to make it to all of the events, but the ones that you can be at, you have to be present and you have to be effective and make it known.
I would kind of say that it's really important given the fact that we see declining attendance. For me as a person, I need to be there at almost every event that goes on. Just to really start to show that I am there. My availability in terms of other commitments would be just the case competitions I would be participating in if I get a chance to, if I get selected there. But other than that, I don't see myself doing any other consulting club, joining another organization as such. So I don't see that as a problem for myself.
So obviously you guys are all up there because you want to make a big impact on our program, and I think that you guys all have really interesting contributions that you can make, and I think that you all have a really equal shot at this for very good reasons. But what I really want to know is, we've been facing a lot of challenges here at the MBA program, and what are you going to do, or what is the single greatest point of impact that you think that you're going to have throughout your presidency over the next year?
Do you want to go again?
No, you go for it.
Okay, so the thing is, this position may be called as a president, but it's more like I'm still a student when I'm working. So I need to constantly interact with the students that I'm working with. I need to constantly interact with the MBA office and the TAG in specific. So when you have these three communications in line and you're communicating to all of them well beforehand about the things you know and you know are potential risks, like Chris usually reaches out to us, like he reached out to us when we have a presentation in the morning by the dean. So it was like you have to be there, and those are the things that I plan to continue doing as I progress in the next 2 years. And clearly working, and one more thing is that as I talk about is interacting with the orientation team would be a very important factor in making an impact for the students coming in, because they are the ones who interact with them, and you know certain things that should go out no matter what, the importance of those things, and not just about registering for the MBAA. So that would be something that I'll push forward in terms of reaching out to the students at the time of orientation for information that they need to know. Like,
I think that's something that's important to realize is that even without having the title of, potentially having the title of president, you're a person first, you know, and I seek to be that MBA one in which with some of you are working groups with clients, or I see you in class, and I plan to be that student to where I walk in an MBA lounge and I'm able to have that casual conversation. My strength is that I'm a people person. Whether you're having a problem, whether you're having a down day, I'm willing to listen and I'm willing to take your opinion into consideration. And I think that's something very valuable when having the position is that, yeah, you got this name or you got this title, but also you're humble enough to listen and to take into consideration everybody else's opinion.
To answer your question about how to confront difficult problems, I think that it's important to realize, or for me, my strength is not being afraid to ask the hard questions to the hard people, not being afraid to confront the problem face on, and also strategically going after it right away. With the Brazil trip, a lot of people wanted to wait and talk to the administration, wait and see what happens, and wait, but I was very adamant that we go to them immediately and start that communication, and I think that the bridge that we've built with the administration at this point and the relationships that we have with them will just continue to build, and we'll continue to get more involved and intricate to make it a little bit easier to actually have the things that we want to happen, and then also to let them realize that they have a little bit of accountability. So.
I think a big thing to hit on is, as far as overcoming some of the challenges we've had, is transparency. So, I mean, the administration has expectations, we have expectations, MBA2s have expectations. We need to make sure that we're being transparent with everybody and communicative to make sure that there's an alignment with those expectations. And so saying, so for me, that looks like reaching out to my fellow students, talking to everybody, seeing how people feel about things, holding meetings with other students in the first year MBA program or in our class or with the other full-time MBAs, and getting input and advice, and then effectively communicating that to the administration, and then again transferring that expectation back down, so that way we can make sure we're